The city of Lagos never truly slept. Even at midnight, traffic still hummed through the streets, streetlights reflected off glass towers, and the Atlantic breeze moved quietly across the city. High above Victoria Island in a glass office overlooking the endless lights of Lagos sat a man many people believed had everything. His name was Chief Emeka Okafor. By the age of 56, Chief Okafor had built one of the largest business empires in West Africa. Oil investments, luxury real estate, shipping companies, technology startups. Wherever money moved in Nigeria, his influence was never far away. Newspapers called him the silent lion of Lagos. But wealth like his was impossible to ignore. His mansion in Banana Island took it more like a private resort than a home, a massive white building surrounded by tall palm trees. A long driveway filled with luxury cars, Rolls-Royce, Mercedes Maybach, and a custom Bentley that rarely left the garage. Inside the mansion, marble floors reflected the glow of enormous crystal chandeliers. Paintings from Europe hung beside traditional African art worth millions. To the outside world, Chief Emeka Okafor was the definition of success: power, respect, money. But there was something the public never saw. Most nights, after the meetings ended and the staff went quiet, the mansion became painfully silent. Too silent. Chief Okafor often sat alone on the balcony of his bedroom, staring at the distant lights of Lagos. From there, he could see the city that had made him powerful. But power had brought something else into his life. A quiet question that had followed him for years. Did the people around him truly love him, or did they only love the empire he had built? His children rarely visited unless business was involved. Old friends suddenly appeared whenever new deals were announced. Even the people who called him family sometimes sounded more interested in his wealth than his happiness. It was a question he had avoided for a long time, but very soon, life would force him to confront it. Because in just a few days, Chief Emeka Okafor would receive news that would shake his world, news that would lead him to create a test that would reveal the true hearts of everyone around him. But for now, Chief Emeka Okafor was still the man who had everything, or at least, that's what Lagos believed. 2 days later, Chief Emeka Okafor sat inside one of the most expensive hospitals in Lagos. The waiting room was quiet, except for the faint hum of air conditioners and distant footsteps in the hallway. Hospitals had a strange way of making even the most powerful men feel small. Chief Okafor adjusted his gold cufflinks as he waited for the doctor. Normally, people waited for him, not the other way around. After a few minutes, the door opened. Dr. Hassan walked in slowly, holding a tablet in his hand. His expression was calm, but there was something serious in his eyes. "Chief Okafor," the doctor said, gently taking a seat across from him. "Thank you for coming in today." Chief Okafor nodded. "Doctor, I have a meeting in an hour. Let's not waste time." Dr. Hassan sighed softly. "Chief, I'm afraid the results from your tests are not what we hoped for." For the first time in many years, Chief Okafor felt something tighten in his chest. "What exactly are you saying?" The doctor hesitated before speaking again. "You have a rare heart condition. It has been developing quietly for years." Chief Okafor frowned. "And?" Dr. Hassan lowered his voice. "If it continues progressing the way it has, you may not have more than a year." The words hung in the room like heavy smoke. For a moment, the billionaire simply stared at the doctor. A man who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking suddenly found himself silent. "A year?" he repeated slowly. The doctor nodded. "With proper care, maybe a little longer. but stress, travel, and your current lifestyle will make it worse. Chief Okafor leaned back in his chair. A strange calm settled over him. 56 years of building an empire. And suddenly time had a deadline. Outside the window, Lagos continued moving like nothing had happened. Cars rushed through the streets. People chased their daily struggles. Life moved forward. But inside that small hospital office, something had changed forever. Dr. Hassan spoke again. You should spend time with the people who matter most to you, family, loved ones. Chief Okafor gave a faint smile. That may be harder than you think, doctor. The doctor looked confused, but Chief Okafor already understood something that had troubled him for years. If his time was truly limited, he needed to know one thing before he left this world. Who around him truly cared about Emeka Okafor the man, and who only cared about Chief Okafor the billionaire. And at that moment, a quiet idea began to form in his mind, an unusual idea, one that would soon turn his entire life into a test that no one around him even knew they were about to take. 3 nights after the hospital visit, Chief Emeka Okafor sat inside his private study in his mansion on Banana Island. The room was large and quiet. Tall bookshelves covered the walls, filled with business books, law files, and old photo albums from a life most people could only dream about. But Chief Okafor wasn't looking at any of them. Instead, he was staring at a small photograph on his desk. It was an old picture of him from many years ago, back when he was younger, back when he had nothing, back when people treated him differently. He slowly leaned back in his chair. Maybe it's time, he murmured to himself. A few minutes later, his lawyer arrived. Barrister Tunde Balogun had worked with Chief Okafor for almost 20 years. He had seen business wars, billion naira deals, and political negotiations. But what he was about to hear that night would still shock him. Barrister Balogun sat down across from the billionaire. Chief, you said it was urgent. Chief Okafor nodded calmly. It is. The lawyer waited. Then Chief Okafor said something that made the man blink twice. I want to disappear. The room went silent. Disappear? The lawyer repeated slowly. Yes, Chief Okafor said, completely serious. For a while, Barrister Balogun stared at him. Chief, forgive me, but disappear to where exactly? Chief Okafor stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the lights of Lagos stretched endlessly into the night. I want to see something, he said quietly. I want to know the truth about the people around me. The lawyer frowned. What truth? Chief Okafor turned around. Who loves me? And who loves my money? Barrister Balogun sighed and rubbed his forehead. Chief, this sounds like one of those movies my wife watches. For the first time that evening, Chief Okafor chuckled. Maybe it is. Then his expression became serious again. I want to leave this house, this name, this life, for a while. And become who? The lawyer asked. Chief Okafor smiled slightly. Just a poor old man. Barrister Balogun leaned forward. Chief, do you know what will happen if the public hears you've disappeared? The media will go crazy. Your companies will panic. That's why only you will know the truth, Chief Okafor replied calmly. He opened a file on his desk and slid it across the table. Inside were documents, plans, instructions. If anything happens to me, Chief Okafor continued, this file contains my final will. Barrister Balogun looked up sharply. Chief, but before that day comes, the billionaire added quietly, I want to see people for who they really are. The lawyer stared at him for a long moment. Then he slowly shook his head and laughed. I've worked for you for 20 years, Chief, but this is the craziest idea you've ever had. Chief Okafor smiled again. Sometimes the craziest ideas reveal the greatest truths. Barrister Balogun leaned back in his chair. And how exactly do you plan to become a poor old man? Chief Okafor walked toward a cabinet and opened it. Inside were simple clothes, old sandals, a worn-out cap. The lawyer blinked again. Chief, you already prepared this. Chief Okafor gave a quiet grin. I told you. I want the truth. And somewhere deep inside him, he knew this strange plan was about to reveal something powerful, something that would change the lives of everyone around him, including his own. But he had no idea that the person who would change his life the most was someone he had not even met yet. Early the next morning, something unusual happened in the mansion of Chief Emeka Okafor. For the first time in many years, the billionaire left his own house without security, without drivers, and without anyone recognizing him. Gone was the expensive suit. Gone were the polished shoes. Gone was the confident billionaire look the world knew. Instead, an old man walked slowly out through the back gate of the mansion. He wore a faded brown shirt, loose trousers that looked 10 years old, simple rubber slippers. A small cap covered part of his face. Even his posture had changed. He'd now walked slightly bent, leaning on a wooden walking stick. If anyone saw him on the street, they would simply think he was another tired old man trying to survive Lagos, not one of the richest men in Nigeria. Chief Okafor looked down at his clothes and smiled quietly. Well, Emeka, he whispered to himself, let's see who really knows you. His first destination was his son's house. His eldest son, Chinedu Okafor, lived in a massive duplex in Lekki, a house that Chief Okafor himself had paid for years ago. When Chief Okafor arrived at the gate, the security guard stopped him immediately. Hey, Baba, where are you going? The guard asked roughly. Chief Okafor coughed softly, playing the role. I came to see Mr. Chinedu, he said. The guard laughed. You, see Mr. Chinedu? Yes, Chief Okafor replied gently. Please tell him an old friend is here. The guard looked at him from head to toe and shook his head. Olga is not around. Just then, a black SUV drove into the compound. Chinedu himself stepped out of the car, talking loudly on his phone. Chief Okafor slowly approached him. Chinedu, he called softly. His son turned, confused. Yes? Who are you? Chief Okafor looked at his own son and said calmly, My son, I came to ask for a little help. Chinedu frowned. I'm sorry. Do I know you? No, Chief Okafor said slowly. But your father once helped me, long ago. Chinedu sighed impatiently. Look, Baba, I don't have time for this. If you need money, go to the church charity or something. Chief Okafor remained calm. I only need somewhere to rest for a few hours. Chinedu shook his head. Security. The guard immediately came forward. Please remove him from here. Chief Okafor looked quietly at his son, the same son whose education he had paid for, the same son whose house he had built, the same son who had once called him the greatest father in the world. But now, his own child didn't recognize him, and worse, didn't care. As the guard escorted him out, Chief Okafor slowly walked back toward the street. Then he chuckled softly to himself. Well, he murmured, that test didn't take long, but he wasn't angry, not yet, because this was only the first test, and many more were coming. What Chief Okafor did not know was that the next person he would meet would treat him in a way he never expected, and that meeting would slowly begin to change his heart. After leaving Chinedu's house, Chief Emeka Okafor walked slowly along the busy street. Cars rushed past him, Danfo buses shouted for passengers, street hawkers moved from car to car, selling everything from phone chargers to bottled water. For the first time in many years, the billionaire was standing in the middle of the real Lagos. Not inside a luxury car, not inside a private office, just another face in the crowd. He watched people carefully. Some were laughing, some were struggling, some were simply trying to survive the day. Chief Okafor sighed quietly. So this is the world again, he murmured. His next stop was his daughter's house. Adaeze Okafor lived in a beautiful apartment in Ikoyi. Unlike Inedu, Adaeze was always known as the soft-hearted child. At least that's what the family believed. When Chief Okafor arrived at the gate, the security guard allowed him to sit outside while he called her. A few minutes later, Adaeze came out. She wore expensive sunglasses and held her phone in one hand. Yes, she said impatiently. Chief Okafor looked at her carefully. My daughter, please forgive me for disturbing you, he said gently. I only need a little help. Adas frowned. Help? What kind of help? I haven't eaten since yesterday, he said quietly. For a moment, Adaeze looked uncomfortable. Then she quickly reached into her handbag and pulled out some cash. She handed it to him without really looking at his face. Here, she said, take this, and please go. Chief Okafor accepted the money slowly. Thank you, he said. But before he could say anything else, Adaeze had already turned around and walked back inside the building. She never asked his name. She never asked where he came from. She never even truly looked at him. Chief Okafor sat quietly for a moment. Then he shook his head and laughed softly. At least she didn't call security, he said. But deep down, something still hurt. Because kindness without attention sometimes felt like charity, not love. Later that afternoon, Chief Okafor decided to test someone else, one of his oldest business partners, Mr. Kunle Ajayi. Kunle had built many companies together with him. They had shared offices, deals, and celebrations for almost 15 years. If anyone should recognize him, it should be Kunle. Chief Okafor arrived at Kunle's office building and slowly entered the lobby. The receptionist immediately looked uncomfortable. Sir, this building is for business appointments only. Chief Okafor nodded politely. I only want to see Mr. Kunle Ajayi. The receptionist looked doubtful but called upstairs. A few minutes later, Kunle himself walked into the lobby. He glanced at the old man standing there. Yes? He asked coldly. Chief Okafor looked directly at him. Kunle. It's me. Kunle frowned. Do I know you? Chief Okafor smiled slightly. Think carefully. Kunle stared for another second, then waved his hand impatiently. Security, please escort this man outside. As the guards approached, Chief Okafor simply raised his hands. No problem, he said calmly. As he stepped outside again, he looked up at the tall building. The same building he had once helped Kunle finance, and he chuckled again. Interesting, he whispered. Then he began walking down the street again. But this time, something unexpected happened. As he passed a small roadside restaurant, someone called out to him, Papa, wait! Chief Okafor turned slowly. A young woman stood near the food stand, holding a tray of plates. She looked at him with concern. Papa, you look very tired, she said. Have you eaten today? Chief Okafor paused. He had not planned this part, but something about the way she asked felt genuine, and that small moment would soon begin the most unexpected chapter of his strange test. As Chief Emeka Okafor walked past the small roadside restaurant, he noticed her. She wasn't tall, but she carried herself with a quiet confidence. Her name was Nkechi Adesanya. She worked in a restaurant helping her parents run the business. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her as kind and hardworking, the kind of woman who smiled at everyone, no matter how small or big. When she saw the old man standing near the counter, she tilted her head and asked, "Sir, are you hungry? Please come sit. I'll get you something to eat." Chief Okafor felt something he hadn't felt in years, genuine warmth. "Thank you, young lady," he said. "I haven't eaten yet today." She smiled, but instead of offering him a chair, she jokingly said, "You're standing like someone who has money, but doesn't know how to enjoy it. Sit, or I'll think you're too proud." Chief Okafor chuckled softly. Her humor was disarming. For the first time during his test, he felt like just a man, not a billionaire. He sat down at a small table outside the restaurant. She
Here,
brought him a
father,
plate of jollof rice,
eat.
chicken, and fried plantains. "You eat
My
like this every
dear,
day?" he asked lightly. She
do you
laughed, a warm melodic sound that reminded him of music. "No, sir, only people who can't steal my food every day," she teased, pointing at a man across the street who had been eyeing her tray. As they ate together, Chief Okafor began asking about her life, listening carefully, pretending he didn't have a fortune waiting for him back home. Nkechi spoke about her dreams of opening her own small restaurant someday, helping her parents, and taking care of her younger siblings. Chief Okafor found himself smiling, laughing, and sharing small stories he had never told anyone. And somewhere in that moment, he realized here was someone who didn't care about his wealth. Here was someone whose heart and actions were genuine. Here was someone who might change the rest of his life. But little did he know, this seemingly ordinary encounter would set in motion the most unexpected twist of his test, because Nkechi would soon become the key to the lesson he wanted to teach everyone and the part of his life that even billions of naira couldn't buy. The next few days felt different for Chief Emeka Okafor. He continued his disguise as the old, poor man and returned to Nkechi's restaurant every morning. At
oh,
first,
that's so
she was
kind
puzzled.
of you, my
"You're
dear.
back again," she said, raising an eyebrow as she placed a plate of akara and pap in front of him. "I thought old men like you don't
Here,
eat this
father,
much." He smiled
eat.
quietly. "Well, I'm hungry," he
My
said, trying to
dear,
hide his amusement.
you
Every
should
day they
have.
talked. He learned about her struggles growing up in Lagos, her younger siblings depending on her for school fees, how the restaurant survived despite competition, a dream of opening a bigger restaurant one day, and she learned things about him too, though she had no idea who he really was. When he tried to tell a story from his past, he always disguised it as a tale of a friend who was rich. Sometimes she laughed at his exaggerations. Sometimes she scolded him for being dramatic. One day, as he was helping her serve food to customers, a small boy tripped and spilled a tray of soup. Onkechi sighed. "See what I mean? Lagos will break you if you're not careful." Chief Okafor laughed, carefully picking up the
Oops,
spilled tray.
almost lost them.
"Maybe I need to learn patience like you,"
Just
he
a
said. She
slight
shook her head, giggling. "Patience is earned, old man. Lagos is the real teacher." He realized something. Despite the simplicity of her life, there was a strength, warmth, and joy in her that he hadn't felt in years. And the more time he spent with her, the more he noticed the little ways she treated everyone fairly and kindly, something he had rarely seen in the wealthy world he lived in. One afternoon, as they cleaned the tables together, she looked at him seriously. "You know, you're different from most people.
almost
You
lost
listen,
them.
you actually hear me, and that's rare these
Just a
days."
slight slip.
Chief Okafor's heart skipped. He wanted to tell her the truth, but he couldn't. Not yet. Instead, he smiled.
Oops, almost lost
"Maybe I'm
them.
just lucky to meet someone like you." She
Just a
laughed,
slight
brushing
slip.
off his words. "You're lucky? Or
Careful.
am I?" He realized then that he was learning something priceless.
Lost
Money could buy comfort, power, and influence,
just
but
to
it could
see
never buy genuine connection, trust, or love. And as he walked back to his temporary lodging that night, he couldn't help but smile quietly. For the first time in decades, he felt alive, seen, and understood. Little did he know, this friendship, this small
father.
spark of connection,
Eat.
would soon change everything, not just for him, but for everyone he was testing. And more surprises were waiting just around the corner. A week had passed since Chief Emeka Okafor began his secret test. Lagos moved on, but he remained in the shadows, observing, learning, and quietly interacting with the world in a way he hadn't in decades. He continued visiting Ankechi's small restaurant daily, but now a strange pattern began to emerge. Some people who had ignored him before were suddenly curious. Chinedu had called to ask about the old man he saw outside the house. Kunle Ajayi, the business partner, had sent someone to check who the man was, whispering that he looked familiar. Even Adese's secretary mentioned seeing him in Ikoyi, sitting at the cafe and laughing with someone young and kind-hearted. Chief Emeka listened quietly as the whispers grew. It made him smile softly. Patience, he whispered to himself. Let them chase shadows while I watch hearts. But life wasn't just tests and patience. There were moments of laughter too. One morning, while helping Nkechi sweep the floor, a plate slipped from her hand and smashed on the ground. I told you, old man, watch where you step, she teased. Chief Emeka laughed. I'm just testing if Lagos can break me too. She rolled her eyes, smiling. You're hopeless. And that day, as they shared akara and pap together, something remarkable happened. She told him about a young boy in the neighborhood who sold newspapers every morning. He had dreams bigger than his small life allowed. Chief Emeka listened. He gave small advice, laughed at the boy's funny antics, and even gave a little money discreetly. Nkechi noticed. You're generous, she said softly. Chief Emeka smiled quietly. I just believe people should be seen, not judged by the world. Little did she know, the old man she was growing fond of was one of the richest men in Africa, testing everyone around him. And the first person whose heart would reveal the most truth was still someone entirely unexpected. By now, his family and business partners were starting to feel uneasy. Rumors about the mysterious old man spread. Everyone wanted to know who was he and why did he appear in so many places. Chief Emeka, meanwhile, walked Lagos streets with ease, observing the city he had built from the top, but now experiencing it from the ground. He realized something powerful. True wealth is not measured in billions of naira, skyscrapers, or luxury cars. It is measured in trust, kindness, and genuine human connection. And in that realization, he began planning the final steps of his test. Because soon, everyone would learn. The man they ignored, laughed at, or helped without realizing was the man they had always claimed to admire. It had been 3 weeks since Chief Emeka Okafor had vanished from the world of luxury. His family, friends, and business partners were restless. Who was this mysterious old man roaming Lagos? Why did he appear at multiple places with no explanation? Chief Emeka, meanwhile, was busy perfecting the final steps of a secret plan. He had learned the true nature of every person he cared about, some with greed, some with indifference, and a rare few with genuine hearts. But now it was time for the most important reveal. The first step, bring together everyone he had tested. He arranged a casual meeting at a small private location. Chinedu, Adaise, Kunle Ajayi, and a few others all arrived, curious and confused. They were shocked to see the old man there. Is this some kind of joke? Chinedu whispered, glaring.
What was that?
Chief Emeka smiled softly. You all saw me differently, he said quietly. He began telling stories of the people around him, the moments they rejected, ignored, or helped others without expecting fame. The group exchanged glances, confused and unsettled. Then he paused and said, some of you treated me with indifference. Some of you helped strangers in need. And one person saw a man, not a fortune. He looked at Nkechi, who had been invited secretly. Her eyes widened, confused. What, what do you mean? Chief Emeka slowly removed the old cap from his head. The wrinkles and worn clothes vanished in an instant. In front of them now stood the billionaire himself, the man whose wealth and influence they all knew. Gasps filled the room. Chinedu froze. My father? He stammered. Adaiza's jaw dropped. You! It was you? Kunle Ajayi looked pale, realizing he had almost dismissed the man he had done business with for years. Chief Emeka turned to Nkechi. And you saw me for who I truly am, not for my money, not for my name. You treated me like a human being. Nkechi blinked, stunned. I don't understand. You will, Chief Emeka said with a gentle smile. And now, the true lesson begins. He revealed that he had prepared his will differently. The majority of his fortune, his companies, houses, and wealth would go to Nkechi Adesanya, the woman who treated him with kindness without knowing his identity. The room went silent. Even his children and business partners who had been greedy or dismissive had nothing to say. Chief Emeka's eyes glistened. This world teaches us many things, he said softly. But the greatest lesson I have learned is this. True wealth is measured in love, kindness, and integrity, not money. And in that moment, the billionaire's test ended. The people around him realized who they had been and who they truly could be. And for Chief Emeka, the richest man in Nigeria, the most valuable thing he gained was the discovery of genuine human connection. A week later, Chief Emeka Okafor called everyone to a private ceremony at his mansion on Banana Island. The air was thick with anticipation. Journalists and onlookers were kept outside, unaware of what was happening inside. Inside the grand hall, family members and business partners sat nervously. Nkechi stood quietly in a corner, still unsure why she had been invited. Barrister Tunde Balogun stepped forward. Holding the final will, Chief Emeka addressed the room. Thank you all for coming. Today, you will see the results of my little experiment. He began recounting the events over the past weeks, the tests, the observations, the small acts of kindness and indifference. Chinedu shifted uncomfortably in his seat. You mean you've been testing us? He asked. Chief Emeka nodded. Yes, and I learned more than I expected about the hearts of the people I love and trust. He paused, looking at Adeas and his business partners. Some of you treated me as a stranger, some treated me as a tool, and one person treated me as a human being without knowing who I really was. All eyes turned to Nkechi. The room went silent. Chief Emeka continued, Therefore, I have made a decision that reflects the true meaning of wealth, love, and integrity. He handed Barrister Balogun the will. The barrister began reading. The majority of Chief Emeka's fortune would go to Nkechi Adesanya, the young woman whose kindness and heart were genuine. His businesses would remain under trusted management, but the inheritance was for someone who valued people more than money. Small gifts were distributed to those who showed genuine love and care, but nothing extravagant. Gasps filled the room. Chinedu turned pale. Ah, all this wealth, and it goes to her. Adais could barely speak. She She doesn't even know him.
Testament.
Chief Emeka smiled
Decision
softly.
is unanimous.
Exactly. She didn't
You
need
move
to.
forward with
She cared for the
caution
man,
and
not the money.
foresight.
That is the
The
greatest wealth
future
anyone can
is
have.
upon us.
Nkechi looked stunned. Tears formed in her eyes.
We try.
I
We
don't
try.
know what to say. Chief Emeka walked to her side.
I know.
You already said it yourself. Love is seeing someone for who
The
they truly
decision
are.
is unanimous.
And today, you have
You
shown
move
that is
forward
priceless.
with caution
Chinedu and
and
Adaeze looked down,
The
ashamed.
future
Kunle Ajayi
decision
whispered,
is unanimous.
I never
You move
realized.
forward with
Chief
caution
Emeka shook his head
and
gently.
foresight.
Many never do,
The
and that is the
future
lesson I hoped everyone would learn. He then turned to everyone in the room. Money can buy comfort, power, and
The
influence,
decision is
but it cannot buy
unanimous.
trust,
You
integrity,
move
or genuine
forward with
human
caution
connection.
and
Those are
foresight.
priceless. Never forget
The
that.
future is
The
upon us.
ceremony ended with laughter, light teasing, and genuine celebration. Even some of the previously greedy relatives learned humility in that moment. Outside, Lagos continued to move as it always had. But inside the mansion,
Flowers need to be a
a
little
small
more to the
miracle had
right.
happened.
Oh, I see it.
A billionaire had
The
tested the
decision
hearts
is
of those around
unanimous.
him. A simple,
You
kind
move
woman had
forward
shown the
with
true meaning of
clarity.
love and wealth. And Chief Emeka Okafor,
Almost
the
lost
richest
it.
man in Nigeria, realized something. True wealth is not counted in billions. It is measured in heart, kindness, and genuine human connection. He smiled, looking at Nkechi. This, he whispered softly, is richer than any fortune. And in that moment, everyone learned a lesson they would never forget. If this story touched you, follow StorySense with a K for more powerful African stories.